I'm seeing all the stuff of the Steelers trade Tomlin. Could this be it? Does Tomlin want to walk away from Pittsburgh? All of these things. Jori, is Mike Tomlin going to be the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers next year?
I think the answer is yes. I think, first of all, I don't think the Steelers get rid of him in the sense that I don't think they're going to ask him out. I don't think they're going to try to trade him, and I don't think that they are going to fire him. Remember, like 3 months ago, people were saying he should be coach of the year. They definitely have regressed to the end of the season. I also think that there have been other points in Tomlin's tenure where he's regressed, and then he's figured out how to turn it around. So really, the season's not so different than some of the recent ones. What's most different is that he had more success early in the season as opposed to later in the season when he would often claw his way back to not having a losing season. And we would all be like, the streak lives on. I think what's interesting to me is that you also have to look at the setup that Mike Tomlin has in Pittsburgh, the same way Bill Belichick had a setup in New England, and say, is he going to have that degree of control anywhere else? And so maybe some people would want a fresh voice. I like to make the joke of like, oh, why don't Mike's McCarthy and Tomlin switch places? Not only because I'm committed to as many head coaches named Mike as possible, which Mike Vrabel is doing a good job of helping us out, but also because McCarthy's from Pittsburgh. They could each be a new voice, all of that. But there's such a setup in Pittsburgh that works really well and better than most of the league. It might not win a Super Bowl already, although someone the other day was like, they're not winning a Super Bowl with him. I'm like, they win a Super Bowl with him.
Like
so
Mike McCarthy.
I think he's staying put. I would be interested to know, though, like, does Arthur Smith come back? I think that it seemed like for a while he had something figured out. But to me, one of the big things is not only does your scheme work, but also can you keep George Pickens motivated? And that's one of the things that I feel like is a crack in the fissure of what Mike Tomlin has done this year, is that when we look at what happened with guys like Antonio Brown and even Le'Veon Bell, though in a very different way, after they left, Mike Tomlin has really kept these personalities in check, so to say, during his time with the team. And I'm not even saying reining them in the sense of like not letting them be who they are, but just getting them to buy into the team above themselves. I mean, like the anti-Tyreek Hill conversation we had earlier. And I do not feel like at the end of this season or even at the beginning, George Pickens was in that place. And so that's what I would wonder is how, if you're Mike Tomlin and you're the Rooney's talking to him about coming back, who's going to be your offensive coordinator? Who's going to be your quarterback? How are you going to get the defense to sort of rebound from its late season decline? And how are you going to be able to keep guys engaged? Because I do think there was a fall off in terms of engagement, maybe not consciously, but at least subconsciously toward the end of this season.
Another name there is Deontay Johnson. We were all like, wow, Deontay Johnson's going really cheap. That's weird. And then we realized, oh, Deontay Johnson. Whew. Yeah, Mike Tomlin did a good job getting something out of him, I guess. So when it comes to Tomlin, I always say this about the Steelers. Whoever you hire as your next head coach, if you want Tomlin out, that's great. Whoever you hire as your next head coach, there's like a 95% chance he's not going to be as good as Mike Tomlin. It's just the truth. I think he did a great job at the beginning of the year, at least, with a really, really bad situation at quarterback. Like Russ has been exposed. I hate it because he was a guy who I was very, very excited about. That story was awesome. He was playing well. And then the wheels just fell off. And you just, when you take a look at the totality of everything, the Steelers, yeah, it didn't end pretty, but they went 10-7. You look at that roster, you look at the quarterback situation, you look at their passing game situation. They have really nothing in the passing game, and that includes George Pickens because he's entirely unreliable. Do you expect them to go better than 10-7 with that roster? I don't. I expected them to go like 6-11. So I think Tomlin, and the totality, did a good job. It's just recency bias where we say, well, they lost their last 4. It was terrible. But I will say this, like, it was a good friend of mine, shout out to Frankie. He brought this name up and I went, okay, that actually does make some sense. He said, maybe Mike Tomlin is Andy Reid. If we remember Philly Andy Reid, what was the whole deal? Like, Andy Reid was winning and winning and winning and winning, and he just got dumped on all the time because can't win the big one, can't win a Super Bowl. They kind of split. Andy Reid goes on and becomes a legend, right? First, no doubt, first ballot, don't even need to wait to 5 years, Hall of Famer in Kansas City. Philly got its Super Bowl II. Maybe that's a Steelers situation here where you just kind of say, we've run its course. And yeah, maybe the next guy we get isn't going to be as good as Mike Tomlin, but we're just going to try something different to see if we can ignite something. Whereas Mike Tomlin goes on to the Cowboys or whoever, Raiders, or he'd get a job in 5 minutes if he wanted to. Like, Mike Tomlin's a future Hall of Famer, probably. That's what his resume says. And maybe he becomes Andy Reid, where he goes somewhere else and has great, great success and Super Bowls and reminds everybody, yes, this is really, truly an all-time great head coach.
Look, if Tomlin turns around and
regrets letting Andy Reid go.
Do you?
I don't think that they were.
No, I don't think so either, because there's a butterfly effect where they never win a Super Bowl. And I don't think that they trade that Super Bowl for anything at all. And obviously, like Andy Reid probably doesn't regret it either because of what he's done with Kansas City, which has been legendary.
I know. And people are going to think I'm such a hater for asking this, but Andy Reid in Kansas City pre-Mahomes was a lot like Andy Reid in Philadelphia, right? Like, it's amazing how things change when all of a sudden you get Mahomes. Like, not that Andy Reid was already a great coach, but he became a superstar coach when he had a superstar quarterback. I'm just
same with Tomlin. Tomlin with Roethlisberger, really, really good. And Tomlin without Roethlisberger is like, they're better than they should be. I mean, making a playoffs ain't no joke. Like, it's hard to do. But what's the ceiling here anymore with the Steelers and Tomlin? Like, I think you do have to at least ask that question, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, they just don't have a clear path to a quarterback. I don't think you can win in today's AFC without a superstar quarterback anymore. There are too many superstar quarterbacks that are in the prime of their career. Like, this is the best era of quarterback play we've ever seen. So I don't know how you compete when you've got Russell Wilson or Kenny Pickett. Like, they're never going to pick high enough to get a quarterback. There aren't enough quarterbacks to get to the Steelers. Like, look, if the Raiders want to trade their entire draft for this year over to the Steelers to get Tomlin, cool. I'll get an I Heart Mike Tomlin tattoo on my ass. Like, I'm all in on this. Like, Tomlin's a great head coach. I believe in Tomlin.
How will we know whether you got one?
Yeah, I don't know,
because I'll put it up on social media.
That seems like the type of thing that you can say, because then you're like, oh, but I don't have to prove it because HR wouldn't support that.
Don't really need to get that proven to me. No,
I mean,
I'll take your word.